Hey, welcome back to the Steel City Sports Podcast, and today we're talking AFC Playoff Teams. So if you haven't seen my video already on the NFC Playoff Teams, go ahead and watch that and watch this one because I'm going to be referencing these prediction videos all throughout the season, because there's always going to be those, 3 or 4 teams that just really disappoint. I remember last year I had the Rams going back to the Super Bowl. That was obviously didn't age very well. So I will be referencing my preseason predictions here throughout the year, and definitely stay tuned for my preseason power rankings video. So let's get into the AFC playoff teams. Winning the AFC, I have the Buffalo Bills. So this is definitely a tough division. This has become, I think, one of the more difficult divisions in the NFL. You have the Jets to go against now that they have Aaron Rodgers. Miami has really built up a high-powered offense and could potentially have a great defense. And New England's even scrappy. Like last year, New England, I think they weren't a very good team. However, they still managed to win 8 games. And they're always well coached. So it's definitely a tough division. However, Buffalo has won this division the past 3 or 4 seasons now. So I feel like until I see the Bills fail to win this division, I'm not going to pick against them. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, even though there are some things that I don't necessarily like about the Bills. They're basically, their entire secondary was injured last year. So all those guys they're back. Yeah, that's good, but they're all off significant injuries. So I don't like that. I still am not really sold on Sean McDermott. I'm starting to see you can make an argument for Sean McDermott to go in terms of being head coach. He hasn't developed a good run game. The offensive line's still not good. And Josh Allen, you can't keep using his body like that. It's going to deteriorate quickly if he continues to be their leading rusher. And then you're obviously seeing some cracks in the foundation with Stephon Diggs and all his drama. But like I said, until I see them dethroned, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they win because they still just have the high-end talent that tops this division. Now we go to probably the weakest division. Not probably, it is the weakest division in the AFC. That's the AFC South, and I have the Jacksonville Jaguars winning that. I think this one's pretty easy. I don't really think this one is up for much of a debate. They're the clear standout team of this division. You look at Houston, they're in the middle of a rebuild. Same with the Colts. I mean, both the Colts and the Texans, they both have a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback starting for them. So they're both kind of figuring it out, even though there are some pieces of Indy that I like. They're very thin on offense. They had a lot of injury on that line. And Houston, they're just a complete mess. They have been for a while now. Tennessee could be interesting, just given the fact they brought in Hopkins, which unlocks their whole passing game. They were missing that all last year. They could be better. But I just think Jacksonville, they have the best roster in this division. They have the best quarterback in this division, Trevor Lawrence. I put him at number 5 on my quarterback rankings. I'd probably drop him down to 6 now because I did realize I was kind of underrating Jalen Hurts. So I'd probably put Trevor Lawrence as the 6th, the best quarterback in the NFL right now, and has a tremendous roster around him. The defense has some nice standout pieces that they've drafted really high, like your Trayvon Walkers, and the secondary, they've spent some money there. And then his receiving core is going to get better now this year with Calvin Ridley, who I think is going to have a monstrous breakout year because people forget Calvin Ridley was an absolute monster with Atlanta, and now he's coming to this offense. I'm expecting big things for them, and I think Doug Peterson's one of the more elite head coaches in the NFL. Weak division. This should be pretty easy for Jacksonville to take this division. And for the AFC West, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. This is the easy one. Although I still think the Chargers have the better on-paper roster than the Chiefs. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice because last year I picked the Chargers to win this division just because of some of the problems I saw with the Chiefs. Them losing Tyreek Hill, losing Tyrann Mathieu, starting all those rookies on the secondary, just having a very thin receiving core. Didn't matter. They won the Super Bowl. I mean, the common knowledge at this point is to just pick the Chiefs. Never doubt the Chiefs. If you pick against them, you're just going to end up looking foolish. So just go with them. They have the best player in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. They have, his favorite weapon, the best tight end in football, Travis Kelce. And Andy Reid is widely considered the best head coach in the NFL. I might actually push back on that. And I'm still considering maybe making like a top 10 head coaches video. So definitely stay tuned for that. If that comes out, let me know in the comments if that's one you'd like to see. But yeah, this team, They're coming off of a Super Bowl. I mean, they still have Mahomes. There's very little else to say. Let's take a real quick look at some of the other teams in the division. Though, like I said, the Chargers. I'm going to talk about them because I do have them as a wild card team. The Broncos, I just don't believe in Denver. It's too big of a mess, I think, for Sean Payton to really make that big of an impact year one. I mean, I really genuinely believe Russell Wilson has regressed as a player. I don't think all the blame should go to Hackett for last year. It seemed like a lot of people were giving Hackett a majority of the blame, but I'd actually give a majority of the blame to Russ. Not to say Hackett doesn't get any, but I'm giving more to Russ than I am to Hackett over that disaster last year. And then you look at this year, like all their receivers have literally been injured in training camp. So I don't think that's great. And then the Raiders, they're the Raiders. I mean, you can't really expect much from them. I do like some of their high-end talent is obviously incredible. Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, and Max Crosby. But outside of those guys, the defense is really thin. The defense was really bad, especially at getting at the quarterback. They were awful at that. And then we're going to have to see if Jimmy G can last a full year. I think it's a bad bet to say that. But, yeah, the Chiefs, they should pretty easily win this. They haven't lost a game in division in the Mahomes era. And my division, the AFC North, we have the Cincinnati Bengals winning. Now, I've seen a lot of people, I'd probably agree with it as well, saying that this is the best division in football. In that, if any of these four teams made it, you wouldn't really be that surprised. It seems like a lot of people are counting out Cleveland, myself kind of included in that. Although, a couple months back, I made a video about how the Browns could be very intriguing, but just looking at Cincinnati alone, you have the best quarterback in the division by far. I love my guy Kenny. Deshaun's interesting. Lamar obviously has won an MVP. Really good division for that. But Joe Burrow led his team to the Super Bowl in his second year. I think it's pretty widely considered the second best quarterback in the NFL behind Patrick Mahomes. He has probably the best receiving core in the NFL. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. The O-line, past two off seasons, they've invested a lot because that's been the big blind spot for the Burrow era in Cincinnati. Has been that offensive line has been atrocious, especially the year they went to the Super Bowl, which made that even more impressive for Burrow. But last year they brought in L. Collins, and then this year you brought in Orlando Brown Jr. at left tackle, who's a Pro Bowl level guy. He not only are you getting his talent, but you also got to take him away from Kansas City. So that's good for Cincinnati if they, meet up with the Chiefs again. They've played them back-to-back years in the AFC Championship game. It's going to be interesting if we see that matchup again. But then defense, I know they had a key departure of Jesse Bates, but I honestly think, given the money he was given in Atlanta, I honestly think it was a good move to move off of Jesse Bates. You don't need to be paying a safety that much money, especially for this team, because you're going to be paying Joe Burrow probably by the end of this year. They're going to get a contract done with him. You're obviously keeping Jamar Chase. You probably want to keep T. Higgins as well. So it's like, if you want to keep the flashy offense and keep that going, you're probably going to have to make some sacrifices. And yeah, sacrificing safety kind of makes sense. But overall, the Burrow Chase probably the best 1-2 connection, unless you want to say Mahomes Kelsey. But yeah, they're just one of the most potent offenses in the NFL. They can go off at any time. And their defense is pretty underrated as well, especially their pass rush is really good. So I have them winning the division. Let's get into the wild card teams. And for the first wild card team I have is the Miami Dolphins. Now, Miami is a team that I really wanted to pick them to win their division. I really wanted to put them over the Buffalo Bills, but two big things stopped me from doing that. Number one is Tua's health. We cannot guarantee Tua is going to play the entire season. Even if Tua played like 15, 14 games, I would consider that really good for Miami, because I think he only played in 10 or 11 last year. I might be getting that wrong, but it wasn't obviously the full year. And the other thing is, like I said when I talked about the Bills, is I got to see someone dethrone them before I pick against them in that division. That being said, for Miami making the playoffs, they have one of the most potent offenses in the NFL when Tua plays. They have the best 1-2 wide receiver punch in the NFL, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Their O-line, it needs some work, but at least you have the left tackle down, which traditionally would be the most important position with Teron Armstead on the line, but obviously Tua is left-handed, so right tackle obviously takes a little more precedence there. But looking at the defense, Miami has, I think, a lot of potential to have a really good standout defense. You brought in Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator, has potential to be the best defensive coordinator in the entire NFL. You brought in Jalen Ramsey. I still think he's the second best cornerback in the NFL behind Sauce Gardner. Could maybe even jump back to claim number one corner this year. I know he's probably going to miss the initial reports were like he's going to miss probably the first 6 weeks of the season, which is obviously kind of sucks. That's a third of the season, but I haven't heard any updated reports on that if he might be back sooner. But even if he does miss 6 weeks, you still have another elite cornerback, Xavier Howard. So Ramsey, when he does get back, is just going to be a cherry on top of this defense. And they have some really good pass rushers as well. Bradley Chubb, I know he peaked kind of in his rookie year, but he dealt with some health issues up in Denver. I think he's going to be a lot better in Miami. And then, of course, Jalen Phillips has been incredible for this team. He's a real standout. So there's just a lot to like for this team. They're very well-rounded. And I really like Mike McDaniel at head coach. I think he's one of the most creative offensive minds in the NFL right now, coming from that Shanahan tree. And you can see the influence on the Dolphins offense and how it's similar to the Niners offense. So I do have Miami being a wild card team. For my second wildcard team, I do have the Bolts, and I do have one glaring problem with the Chargers. If you listen to me at all last year, you're going to hear me say it a lot this year, and it's going to get annoying because I'm going to sound like a broken record, but Brandon Staley should not be a head coach in the NFL. I think he should have been fired at the end of his first year whenever he called that timeout and resulted in the Chargers missing playoffs. Obviously, I liked it as a Steelers fan because it got us into the playoffs, but if you're a Chargers fan, literally all the guy had to do was not call a timeout, and they were in the playoffs that year. You should have been fired for that right off the bat. And then even this past year, blowing a 24-0 lead you had at halftime. That's another reason he should have been fired. The guy's just I don't even know if he knows how to manage the game of football. And he was brought in as a defensive guy. They have defensive stars everywhere, all over this defense. You got Bosa, Mack, Derwin James, J.C. Jackson, all these big names, and their defense was bad last year, really bad last year. So all that being said, you got Justin Herbert, and that's the thing. If you have a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, everything else kind of doesn't really matter. You're going to be a playoff team. Justin Herbert's just that good. The first 2 out of his first 3 seasons in the NFL threw for over 5,000 passing yards. The guy it doesn't matter who he has around him. His guys, his receivers dealt with injuries all year last year. Keenan Allen missed a majority of the year. Didn't matter. He didn't miss a beat. Very Mahomes-like in that, it doesn't matter if his receivers are hurt or playing or not. He's going to get, the right play made. The O-line is really good. It's starting to build up a nice line there. Eckler's back, at least for this year. So I just think there's too much talent on this team, despite my I guess it's really grown into hatred of Brandon Staley because I really, really think that he's limited this team. He kind of wasted away Herbert's rookie contract with this clown calling the plays, or he doesn't call plays, but he's the head coach. Despite my take on him, the roster just has too much talent. Herbert is too good. You got a nice offense around him. You also brought in Kellen Moore from Dallas, who could be really nice. So all that, they're just too good on paper to not make the playoffs. And call me biased, but the last wild card team I have is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I really, really just like the construction of this team. I think we had a really nice offseason. Despite losing Cam Sutton, I liked the draft we had. I think was phenomenal. You saw our draft being consistently ranked as one of the best. Bringing Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., Darnell Washington, I think are all going to significantly contribute as rookies. Kenny Pickett. Go back and look at his numbers the last 5 games last season. The guy was absolutely on fire. We went 5-0 in those games. And the offensive personnel around Kenny Pickett is really nice as well. You look at our receivers. Deontay Johnson has been a really consistent 1,000-yard guy for years now. George Pickens, I think, has potential to be a top 10, top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. I don't even think that that's too big of a hot take. I know I've seen a lot of non-Steeler fans loving on, talking about how good George Pickens is and how great he can be. And then adding the veteran Allen Robinson, take last year out just because the Rams were such a cluster, last year. Everywhere the guy went, it didn't matter who his quarterback was, he put up numbers. Jaguars, he was with Blake Bortles, he was putting up 1,000-yard years. Went to Chicago, I don't even remember who his quarterback, Trubisky, Nick Foles, just not very good quarterback play. And now he's getting Kenny Pickett, and he's going to, I think, be really good in this offense. I think we've really developed a nice 1-2 punch at running back with Najee Harris, more of that like grinder, Derrick Henry-esque mold. He's the bigger, more, just plow you guy. And then you have the speedster Jaylen Warren, who had a phenomenal year last year, kind of came out of nowhere. And then you look at what I think really makes this team good is the defense. We have, I think, the potential to be a top 5 defense in the NFL. Just back in 2020, last time we made the play, or no, it wasn't the last time we made the playoffs. But back in 2020, that defense was top 3 in the NFL. And you still have a lot of similar guys on that defense. You still have TJ Watt, who missed 11 games last year. It was a reason why we probably missed playoffs last year. He's going to be, he played 11 games. He didn't miss. He played 11 games, so he missed 6. Cam Hayward, Minka, there's still all the studs. Tomlin's obviously still here. I'll probably be doing a longer format on the Steelers, but that's been my playoff teams. So go ahead and let me know in the comments how I did. Thanks.